This video is sponsored by Brilliant. Hey, happy Friday. This week the US government started working on the digital dollar, the nothing phone was spotted in the wild, probably, and Samsung had a pretty nasty hack. Our tech knowledge quiz is a tiered one again this week, ranging from easy to medium and then hard questions. See how many of them you can get right. Links are in the description, and welcome to the Friday Checkout. Okay, my release highlights this week start with the Volkswagen ID Bus. This is the classic hippie van, but modern, electric, and it's coming to markets starting next year. Beyond that, we had a ton of new Apple stuff this week, starting with the M1 Ultra chip in the new Mac Studio, a new powerful desktop for professional level use. This comes with all of the ports, enough to finally show that Apple does listen to consumers sometimes, even though it sometimes takes them years, and it can also be had with the new M1 Ultra chip, which is special for interconnecting the die of two M1 Max chips to create a bigger system on a chip that is set to be 8 times faster than the original M1. It also comes with one interesting detail. If you choose the M1 Ultra in the Mac Studios versus the M1 Max version, the machine with the Ultra becomes 1 kilogram, or for our American friends, 2 pounds heavier due to the added copper over aluminum for heatsink cooling. Wild. Then there is a new 5G iPhone SE for 2022, which made Apple's cheapest phone $30 more expensive at $429. It has the new A15 chip with 5G, although I don't quite know why you'd need that much power on a 720p 4.7-inch LCD screen. My guess is that carriers just didn't want to keep selling a 4G phone anymore. Beyond that, there are a few changes for buyers to get excited about. The design is pretty much the same. Then the iPad Air 5 now comes with an M1 chip and 5G at the same price as before. And finally, Apple's new $1,600 Studio display is here, which features, among other things, an A13 Bionic chip for webcam and sound, and a $400 height adjustable element. How extremely Apple. Okay, my first story of the week will be that Joe Biden finally signed a long-awaited executive order that will pursue digital assets. Or in other words, cryptocurrencies and a digital dollar. So regarding crypto, this order instructs all of the US departments and agencies to investigate the impact of cryptocurrencies on markets and major financial institutions in general, looking to establish a proper legal framework around them. And second, it calls them to figure out how to, quote, mitigate the illicit finance and national security risks posed by misuse of digital assets, which of course is mostly a reaction to fears that Russia would potentially use crypto to evade sanctions. Having a proper legal framework instead of our current vague mess was well received by Bitcoin supporters, and the price of Bitcoin rose sharply right before it fell down again. The bigger story is that Biden also wants a report within 180 days on central bank digital currencies and the US implementation thereof, i.e. the digital dollar. So what is that and why does it matter? Well, we don't quite know what the US implementation will look like yet, but China and a few other countries have already released their central bank digital currencies, and I've made an in-depth video about the Chinese one that you can watch right here. But basically it's a digital form of money issued by the central bank that also comes with some form of payment processing service and a digital wallet. In a report from January this year, the Federal Reserve said that, quote, a CBDC would be a liability of the Federal Reserve, not of a commercial bank, so theoretically they could directly manage the wallets and the transactions themselves, cutting out the middleman. The value of the digital dollar would be tied to that of the real dollar, and because this is a legal tender, the government could mandate that all digital platforms in the country would need to accept payments through their wallets, just like regular cash in the real world. The potential upside is that you can cut out banks and middlemen like PayPal, and you don't have to worry about them going bankrupt, for example, or not being accepted somewhere. But the downside, of course, is that you are now giving even more data and power directly to the government. The US has actually been very slow with developing a digital dollar. It is apparently, quote, the furthest behind among major economies, and the White House itself said that over 100 countries are already exploring exploring or piloting CBDCs, so yeah, there's a bit of work to do. No one quite knows how exactly this will play out. China's digital yuan had pretty slow progress, to be honest, so it's hard to extrapolate anything from that either. But the next stage will be this report, and then we'll see where the politicians fall on it. Where there's money, there's more problems. Okay, my second story is that Carl Pei and Nothing seem to be gearing up for a pretty major 2022. And it's almost confirmed now that they're gonna have a smartphone, just like I predicted in February, and I think also in like 4 months ago. In typical Nothing marketing style, Carl Pei is set to give a keynote on the 23rd of March, and I expect he's probably going to announce an announcement or show like a vague photo of a corner of a phone or like a silhouette and talk about that for an hour. Then adding onto the mix, a leaked photo earlier this week from EvLeak showed Pei presumably showing Qualcomm CEO Cristiano Amon a prototype of the smartphone, though we couldn't quite make out anything there. Or did we? Editor? Enhance. Yeah, damn it. No, that didn't work. Disappointing. Anyway, Nothing has also just raised an extra $70 million, putting them well over $140 million raised in total, which means that suddenly Pei has all the money, all the talent, and all the contacts that he needs to launch something big. And they said that, quote, the funding will be used to create new product categories in partnership with Qualcomm Technologies and its Snapdragon platform. A lot of people told me that I was wrong when I predicted that their second product would be a phone, but I mean, in retrospect, I can now say, I told you so, you were wrong. But let me know down in the comment what kind of phone you expect this to be. Is it going to be a flagship, maybe a flagship killer, mid-range, entry-level? What do you expect? I think based on the Nothing Ear ones, I would expect this to be not a super flagship product, but kind of like maybe upper mid-range with some design flares. That would be my guess. Okay, and my third story of the week is going to be something that I think should have been a pretty major story, but was actually handled fairly quietly by Samsung. Hacker group Lapsus $, that's just how I'm going to call them, allegedly got almost 200 gigabytes of data from Samsung. And while Samsung says this wasn't personal data of customers or users of its phones, the code is rather sensitive. It includes source code used by Samsung for encryption and biometric unlocking functions on Galaxy hardware, as well as other security-related stuff, and it was shared on Telegram and Tor. And if this sounds familiar, it's because this was the same group that also recently hacked Nvidia in the same way. They sent employees phishing emails with malware attached, and boom, it's rather incredible that they got 2 such mega corporations in a row. Lapsus $, apparently hasn't really blackmailed Samsung like they did with Nvidia. They basically just put all the data online right away, or at least that's what we're hearing. And that's kind of weird. I mean, why go through all the trouble of getting your hands on such sensitive data and then just publishing it for everybody to see without profiting? Weird. Anyway, Samsung says there's not much to worry about, but actually things are a little concerning. Samsung's statement that it sent to Sam Mobile was almost like a joke. It said, quote, we were recently made aware that there was a security breach relating to certain internal company data. Immediately after disclosing this incident, we strengthened our security system. Let me interrupt here, and I know I'm being a smartass, but this is like saying we've locked the door after everything was stolen from our warehouse. Like, okay, cool. Anyway, then, according to our initial analysis, the breach involves some source codes relating to the operation of Galaxy devices, but does not include the personal information of our consumers or employees. Of course, initial and current being the keywords here, so we might find out that that's not actually the case later on. Now, the source code being out in the wild like this is of course bad for Samsung as a company, but probably not for users initially. However, with time, hackers could look at the code and try to find weaknesses in things like how Samsung handles encryption, or fingerprints, or biometric data, which would theoretically make their jobs much easier. Now, we don't know what will happen, but I'm kind of surprised that this story hasn't received a lot more media attention. Now, with cybersecurity becoming ever more critical, building a career in this field is becoming both more interesting and, of course, more lucrative. And there are great courses on topics that can help you build a career like that, including computer science, cryptography, and more from my sponsor Brilliant, along with courses on general science, engineering, and math. Brilliant is the interactive online learning platform for these topics, with 10 million people using the platform to invest in themselves, to learn and keep their minds sharp. If you'd like to open the door for new ways of thinking and to get better at your actual work or school, or maybe even switch careers altogether, they are the place to do just that. Their interactive courses will help you level up your STEM skills in a really fun and effective way, and I particularly love their newly reworked computer science classes that go from explaining how exactly a computer makes its most simple decisions all the way up to complex algorithms, machine learning, and more. If you want to level up your skills in this area, they have a great path from beginner to advanced, and they also cover a ton of fun science topics outside of computers as well. Brilliant is built from the ground up to be interactive, with lessons having exercises attached to them right away, so you can learn by doing. It is a much more effective and enjoyable process than just reading a book or watching a lecture passively, and the first 200 people who sign up using brilliant.org/TFC will also get 20% off their annual premium subscription. So check them out, happy learning, and I'll see you next week.